Hey friends, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. My name is Jake, and today we're taking a look at a fixed blade knife. This is the Sencut fixed blade that's out there, the WAXAHACHIE SA11 A, B, and C. There's 3 models of this. 2 G10 colors, this jade and black G10, and you've got a really nice, I think it's sort of a forest green kind of micarta as well, and the micarta version has got a black wash blade. This is not a very large knife. What's the blade? About 3.7 inches in the blade, and just a little over 4 inches in the handle. Not too heavy. It's got a classic kind of buoy with modern touches to its style, or clip point blade. And there's a lot of good about this knife. There is a little bit of con about this knife. If you're wondering why I'm doing a fixed blade and it's not Friday, when I started this channel years ago, back in 2016, it was probably 1 in 25, 1 in 30 knives was a fixed blade. Now I'm trying to keep it closer to like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 because, fixed blades, they're more important for this knife hobby than you may think. I just mentioned in an email to somebody today, I really wish it was culturally appropriate pretty much everywhere to wear a fixed blade on your hip. And this is pretty much the size of knife that I would like to have on my hip at all times. But people generally don't want to see knives around. Where I live here in Alberta, in central Alberta, north of Calgary, this is ranch country. I can wear a fixed blade on my hip, no problem. So I'm happy with that. But, there's cities and stuff that we go to, you just can't carry a knife like this without somebody looking at you like crazy. Or even Calgary, it's illegal to carry a knife on your person in public. Calgary, cowtown, rancher country. It's the cowboy city of Canada, and you can't have a knife on your person. That's nuts. Are there any other places in Canada that you know of that you can't have a knife in public? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm kind of curious. Or anywhere else for that matter. Anyhow, I'm starting to ramble. Let's come over to the tabletop. First, I want to thank my supporters. I appreciate your help every month, and I'll do a draw for who the winner is very soon. We're going to take a good close look at this knife and the sheath that comes with it, and hopefully I'll answer all your questions. If I don't, ask them in the comments. I read every comment. I love to keep the comment section very clean because there are kids who watch my channel. That makes me happy. It makes me very happy. Come on down. Let's take a look at this thing. Let's begin with the sheath. We've got a pancake style Kydex sheath, and they've done a good job putting it together. You can't really, well, I guess you can just barely see a seam in some places and not in others. So, they've burnished it really well at the edges. And it has the Civivi Terzula belt loop system on here, which, if you know me, I really dislike this kind of belt clip kind of thing. It makes the knife just sit way too high on at least my waist. But if you like to carry knives scout carry, it works okay for that. Because, you've got these standard hole systems. You can turn this 90 degrees and have the knife scout carry if you want to. There's a hole in the sheath there for drainage. The retention, let's talk about that. Clicks in really well. Let's hold this out of the way. Oh, yeah, it's not loose in there at all. It's hanging on really well. There's no special push-off spot, but you can easily just grab the handle and push off. And you do that when you're pulling the knife out. Works just fine. I do wish they had a different kind of system, preferably a dangle system. I just found out this week about this. This is the Schnitzel Try, and it's a really nice knife. And Battle Merchant is the company that owns Schnitzel, at least I believe that's the way it is. And they've developed a dangle system, so you can get rid of this, which is just basically, another version of that. So you can get rid of this and carry it with a dangler. It's €8, 7.99 euros for that dangle attachment. I will be getting one on the channel. Hopefully White Mountain Knives gets the dangler system separately, because I think there's a slew of knives that I would much rather use that on. And it's a very simple system. You've seen in the picture already. And, it should be able to attach to most knives. So I really wish that comes about. Now for the knife itself. First off, this lanyard, it's mostly silliness. This lanyard really doesn't do an awful lot, being, you know, so small and just has this square. You could retie it into a proper loop that you could use, but basically they just wanted to dress it up a little bit, and so that's what this is. This is dressing. It's not really a functional stuff, and that's all I'm going to say about it. All right, well, other than it's empty paracord, it's just the outside. The knife itself, look at this knife. I am quite happy with this knife. The light keeps reflecting off the blade. It is a satin finish. Right now, White Mountain Knives has only got the Jade G10 version in stock. We've got a little bit of a thumb riser here, and then we've got this clip point, nice belly all the way back. Maybe there's a short section of straight edge right there. Really good size sharpener's choil. I'm extremely happy with that. Senkut's badging is up there on the main bevel. I wish they would have made it just a tiny bit smaller and put it on the flat, but at least it's not too huge and it's not too in your face. And the steel type is right there, but it's barely legible. Even in the close-up, you can barely read that it says right there in the edge, 9CR18 MOV. Now, 9CR18, I think, is a really good stainless steel for this knife, especially if you live in a place where it's quite humid. Maybe you're close to the ocean, because 18% chromium, that makes it very corrosion resistant. It's one of the best corrosion resistant knives, you know, as far as budget knives goes. We've got a nice chamfer up here. It doesn't go right to the edge. It's about ½ an inch here where it's not chamfered at all. So that chamfer is basically decorative. It does help plunge into things if you want to go deeply into things a bit better. That tip is quite good at plunging. You've got a little bit of a guard here, so as long as you have a firm grip, you can plunge into things, and that works great. Slicing and cutting, in my experience, this knife didn't do that well, but it's got two problems. Well, not problems. It's got two things going against it performing extremely well. The steel is fairly thick at the tip and keeps getting thinner all the way back. It's a decent thinness back here, but overall, it's too thick right at the edge. And the other thing that it doesn't have going for it out of the box is the grind angles. It's got a pretty large grind, not this large, that's like 90 degrees, but it's got a pretty large grind angle. It needs to have a shallower grind angle. We've got a full tang here. Look at all that jimping. I wish it went all the way up until that swedge started, but you know, that'd probably just be one more line and then, or milled in line. But it's quite nice. This thumb area, it's aggressive. Even if you stick your thumb out a long ways, you get a pretty good extra grip on there. I'm very happy they've made it that big. That's more than most knives get, so I'm happy with that. And we've got exposed tang everywhere. It's chamfered on the sides. The G10 is in a little bit, and the G10 is rounded over. It's not just chamfered. That's got a nice bullnosing all the way around it. We've got two T8 pins right here, nice stainless steel pins, and I'll take it apart a little bit later. And then at the back here, we've got the lanyard hole. The good thing about this lanyard hole I like is that the G10 doesn't come all the way around, so the paracord stays in. So even if you go and grab it further back, you know, it doesn't sort of have a pressure point, you know, with the lanyard. So I'm quite happy with that. Let's take the lanyard off now and let you see it without, because that's how I would carry it, right like that. I might put a loop on it, like just a simple loop that I can use. I've done a video about how I use loops on fixed blades, and I won't cover that here. But that's quite nice. Also, you've got the steel exposed, so if you do need to do some crushing of something, you know, you do have exposed steel. You could use it for that. It's not really made for that. Now, this is not an outdoorsman's bushcrafter's kind of knife. There's no square edges for striking a ferrocerium rod. Does it come with a ferrocerium rod? No, that's not what it's designed for. Now, the grind on this thing. I really like that we've got a high bevel. We do have a nice flat spot here, so if we want to clamp on for a guided sharpening system, that works fine. But even if you're sharpening this on a whetstone, We've got a nice gradual belly here, and it's a nice knife. The design of this is excellent. I go back again, the main flaw on this blade is that it gets a little too thick. It's about 26 thousandths near the tip, and it goes back down to 19 thousandths, but I'll go over all those measurements on this thing in just a minute. Let's just talk about these holes. They are chamfered. You know, there's 3 holes all the way through. That does help with the grip a little bit, depending on how you want to grip it. Like you could put your thumb in there if you wanted to, you know, plunge it in flat on something. That gives you extra security. Or, you know, a saber grip like this, hammer grip, you know, it's quite nice. Even a reverse grip is quite comfortable. And even I found the reverse pull grip to be okay too. So most grips are quite comfortable. Just before we go over all the measurements, let me just take it apart and show you that. Here it is taken apart. It's really that simple. We've just got 2 screws and 2 pins. It is technically free spinning, but I didn't have any problem with spinning at all. And there you go, just the 2 holes and the ones that you can see that go through it. No surprises whatsoever. The weight of the knife, including the lanyard, is 132 grams, 4.66 ounces. The sheath with the clip is 85 grams, 2.99 ounces. Everything that comes in the package, 217 grams, 7.65 ounces. Now that's not super light, but it's not crazy heavy either. I'm quite happy with that. The sharpness from the factory, 270 bests. I like it to be well under 200. At least the way I use my tester, the average from the knives I sharpen is around 140. So 270 is quite a bit inferior from the average. Let's talk about why that is in just a second. But first, the length of the cutting edge. So from the sharpener's choil to the tip, 91.1 millimeters, 2.59 inches. Tip to the closest spot on the G10, 94 millimeters, 3.7 inches. The thickness of the blade here up at the flats and at the ricasso, 3.41 millimeters, which is 0.1345, so just a bit over 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth this way is widest right at that transition point up here, 30.4 millimeters, 1.2 inches. The thickness behind the grind, I already mentioned it before. It starts off at 0.48 millimeters, or 19 thousandths. It ends at 0.66 millimeters, which is 26 thousandths. So the average along the length is 0.57 millimeters, 22.5 thousandths. I do like it sort of that it's a bit thicker at the tip, but I wish it would be under 20 thousandths by the time before you got halfway down the blade. But it's more like 22 thousandths right here. It's not that big of a problem right now, but every time you sharpen the knife, it's going to get thicker and thicker and thicker because it's not a hollow grind. So I wish it was thinner. The rest of the measurements, the handle length. So this is from the end of the G10 to the end of the steel back here, 106.1 millimeters, 4.18 inches. The handle thickness, it's about 12.5 millimeters, 0.492 of an inch, so under half an inch, that's nice. The handle depth, it's narrower and getting wider, so within the grip area, so not counting, you know, this guard right up here, but within the grip area, the widest point is right here, 26.6 millimeters, 1.05 inches. And the grip area, we've got little rounded edges, so this is a rounded number. It's about 4¼ centimeters, or about 3⅓ inches, which is just big enough for somebody with hands my size. If my hands were quite a bit bigger, I think this knife handle would be a bit too small. If your hands are large, men's large and smaller, you'll find this very comfortable. My hands are just barely extra large. I find it quite comfortable myself, but I wouldn't want my hands to be much bigger. The total length of this knife, it's about 197 millimeters, 7.76 inches. Not too bad. So what do we got? We got 3.7, just over 4, pretty good proportion. So I didn't show you the balance point before. It's not quite over this hole. It's a little bit back of that first hole. Not terrible. I wish it was a bit further forward than that. During edit, I noticed I forgot to record the grind angles. Well, the average grind angle on this side is 28.1 degrees. This side is 27.6 degrees. You know, that's what I was talking about being too big of an angle. This side started at 26.1, ended at 29.1 degrees. That's about 2 degrees of change along the length. This side started at 26.9 degrees, ended at 28.3 degrees. That's 1.4 degrees of change. So the grind angles are why the cutting score was 270 best. I'm sure the cutting score would be a lot better if the grind angles were smaller. I've had so much experience with steels, I can guarantee you that this knife can cut a whole lot better than it did from the factory. What is the price of this knife? And then I'll tell you what I think of it. I almost forgot the price. At Sencut, the G10 versions are $59.25, and the micarta is $63.95. At White Mountain Knives, the G10 is $52.20. Like I said, they've only got the jade available, at least when I'm recording this. You take off 10% with coupon code CCE, that's for Canadian Cutting Edge, $46.98, so 47 US dollars, not bad at all. If you can wait, White Mountain Knives has got a notify me button. It's an orange button. You put in your email address and you'll get an email when it's back in stock. I'm sure it will be back soon. If you're in Canada and you don't want to buy this from the United States, I would like to say, why not? This fixed blade knife would have no problems crossing the border into Canada, and it costs less money from the States than it does in Canada. Now for my final summary. What do I think of this knife? Well, they could have done without this, but I think it's a touch that there are some consumers are going to say, oh, it's got a lanyard. Yeah, not me. The sheath, I really do wish it would catch on to have a dangle attachment option. I would really love that. Clearly, it doesn't cost much to make it. If Battle Merchant can sell it for €8 and make a profit, I think a lot more companies need to be making a dangle option for their Kydex sheaths because it is so inexpensive to do. And I don't really like this that much. The main sheath, though, I'm very happy with that. It's nice and light. It's got a good drain hole. It's got good retention. The knife itself, I'm generally happy with the knife. I really like this design. It's well made. I like that the steel type badging is very small. I wish it was just a little bit more clear. And I wish opposite would be here on the Sencut. I wish that would be a little bit smaller. I love the shape. I really like the jimping here. The thickness of the steel is quite good. The steel choice is quite good for the price point. And like I said, it's a great stainless steel for a budget knife. I just wish it was a little bit thinner all the way along the edge of the blade. Even better, I would love this in a hollow grind. If anybody from Sencut's watching, if you do another edition of this, please put a hollow grind on and add a dangle. Go to Battle Merchant, take a look at what they've done. Add that dangle option. You know, maybe charge a little bit more money. Maybe, you know, use even a higher end steel. Maybe not. I don't know. It is Sencut after all. But yeah, between a hollow grind and a dangle system, that would make this thing pretty near perfect as long as the edge is thin enough. That's the knife. Thank you. Huge thank you to my supporters. Thank you so much, guys, for helping out my channel, guys and gals. I appreciate it an awful lot. And to everyone, I finish off by saying, remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.